John and Pete spoke with reporters yesterday ahead of the NFL draft. So what did we learn? Well, let's find out. We got a couple cuts for you guys. We have a lot to talk about. It's not just on one topic. So I'm going to bounce around to a couple different things. We're going to start with the interior defensive line. Now, Pete Carroll starts with this one. We know, Bump, that they have made a number of moves there, releasing some guys, letting some guys leave in free agency. Some guys remain unsigned. Maybe they come back on cheaper deals like Al Woods, who can say? We also are assuming that this is where they address the position group at number 5 overall, but Pete Carroll talking about the changes that they've made and the issues they faced.
We've done some work here in free agency, and we're going to continue in the draft, and we'll just keep battling throughout, to put it together. We made some big commitments that have gotten us to this point. We're really excited about it, but it has left us with there's a few question marks we got to get filled out. There's plenty of time to get that done.
There's a few question marks that have left to get filled out when it comes to the defensive line. What question marks is Pete talking about?
He's talking about that nose tackle spot. He's talking about depth, the best defensive lines. Obviously, you got some ballers in there, but you have guys like Miles Adams who are going to give other guys breaks. He's looking at that unit and saying they have to be strong. And when that second group comes in, obviously there's going to be a drop-off in some positions, but it can't be too big of a drop-off. So he's just saying, look, there's some work to be done. It'll be done in the draft. It'll be done in free agency.
All right. Speaking of it being done in the draft, we've all been looking at pick number 5 as where it could potentially be done. Jalen Carter could be there. Might Will Anderson be there? Obviously, they would be in a 3-4 more of those outside linebacker spots. But either way, defense could be addressed at number 5 overall. John Schneider saying that's not the only place we've been looking.
Obviously, everybody's focused on 5, and rightfully so. But the 20th pick is extremely important. As is 37, and it's so you're constantly trying to paint pictures and scenarios of what you think will happen and what other teams will do what. We're getting into we finished yesterday with the scouts going back over the board through their spring and how everybody performed in the spring, and so now we're getting into we'll have the coaches in this weekend, and then we'll get into heavy scenarios, talking to other teams, speaking with agents.
Now, when he says we're getting into scenarios, what kind of things is he talking about?
He's talking about what happens if Arizona trades out of their spot? What happens on the back end 10 through 11 if there's movement there? Who do we expect to pick who? You're looking at what each team needs, and you're trying to predict what they're going to do, and you're taking the information that you already have. John Schneider talks to other GMs in the league, right? He's in cahoots with a few of these guys for sure, and they're exchanging information on what did you hear about this team? What did you hear about that team? So what they're doing is they're trying to project what's going to happen, and then they put themselves in that scenario and say, okay, if this happens, what is our move? Now, it's a hard thing to do to project what's going on, but if you have a plan of attack, you have an idea of what you want to do, you're not going in blind, you're not frantic if something happens, you're just moving guys all over the board. I assume there's a big old draft board in that war room, and you're trying to figure out the best case scenarios and the worst case scenarios.